Hey guys, this is Jeff from Evans Tuning. Today's Daily Tune episode, we have a 2004 Mitsubishi Evolution 8. It has a upgraded turbo, a Blausch Dominator 1.0 turbo. It has a stock bottom end. It has GSC S2 camshafts, 950cc injectors, upgraded fuel pump, 3-port boost solenoid, 3-inch turbo back exhaust, larger front mount intercooler. This car is being converted to speed density, so the mass airflow sensor has been removed. It's going to be tuned using ECU flash or open source with the Tephra V3 3D ROM and setting up a bunch of the cool features that ROM offers. So we're going to get this on the dyno and get started and see what we can do today. What do you rev it to? Okay. Okay. It was like 445.
For real?
Yeah.
I did not expect.
It was a lot of boost.
It is a lot of boost.
So we'll see.
27 and change, I believe, out the top.
Yeah, it's up there. I'll throw my file back in and start tuning it.
I think it's only like 8 degrees time tops level 2. I mean,
Something real low, yeah. That's probably why you can get away with running that much boost. So,
yep.
yeah, I'll feel it out.
Yeah.
So this car actually was, it's been tuned before. It has actually like a road tune, remote tune kind of deal done on it. We just did a baseline pull just kind of for reference what it's making. Put down 445 and like 360 torque with a lot of boost. It's around 26, 27 PSI on 93 octane. I'm gonna go through and I'm completely changing the ROM type in it. It's going from a 2D volumetric efficiency ROM to a 3D volumetric efficiency ROM, so that just gives me a lot more resolution in the fuel map to play with, which gives a lot better control over the fueling. So this is going to be running a Tephra V3 ROM. There's a guy that basically creates these ROMs and creates all these custom features, and it kind of uniforms all of the open source tables and fixes and stuff that kind of people have came up with over the years. This guy uniforms everything and puts it into one kind of universal ROM for like a Evo 8 or for like an Evo 9. Makes it really nice when you do open source. You can get a bunch of cool features, but you can be consistent between different kind of cars. So I've been using on all of the ECU flash open source. Try to use all the Tephra V3 ROMs when I can. So I just flashed the car, converted it over to my ROM. I'm going to start tuning. This is going to be a little bit of trial and error to get it all set up and running, but we'll see how it goes. We'll get started right now. So I've been calibrating the volumetric efficiency 3D fuel map. I went through, I got all my VE points kind of swept out as much as I could. I got all my short and long-term fuel trims look like they're pretty balanced. They're plus or minus a few percent. So those look all good. I made a first few 2 pulls off the wastegate actuator. It looks like it's building about 21, 22 PSI, and the first pull was super rich. Second pull leaned out a little bit, added a little more ignition timing. So this pull, I'm gonna bump the boost up to about 25, 26, add a little bit more ignition timing. I'm not seeing any knock count. And the fuel curve looks pretty good. There's a little bit in the mid-range, needs to get fattened up with fuel. It's about 12.2, 12.3, and drops to about 11.2 up top. So I'm gonna fatten up the mid-range a little bit, get that a consistent 11.3, 11.2, something like that, all the way out. So far so good. I keep flashing it. The process is kind of trial and error. Trying to see what works. I'm also trying to get the idle to idle as smooth as possible, below 1,000 RPM. The previous tune had the idle set around 1,100. It's not a bad thing. You can do that. I just prefer to try to idle it, a little bit under 1,000 RPM. So just playing with some of the idle maps, specifically the ignition timing values that produce the most vacuum, and also gave the best idle stability. So I've been kind of tweaking that, getting close. Looks pretty good as is, but yeah, I'm just gonna keep flashing it and then turn the boost up here and see what it does. Like on the lookup table, the reference table, that's pretty much just leading the solenoid in with too much because there's an error correction. So if you give it, let's say at 2,500, you're trying to command 20 PSI boost, you're not gonna get that out of this turbo. So there's gonna be a huge margin of error. The lookup, the duty cycle versus error lookup table, depending on how you configure that, can add, like say 20% duty cycle to the solenoid. You're pretty much winding up the boost solenoid. As it's building boost, you're talking 500-600 RPMs can be the difference of 10 PSI to 20 PSI on a turbo like this. So you have to basically request either less load or decrease your duty cycle lookup error table so that it doesn't wind the solenoid up trying to command a bunch, and then the turbo basically overshoots because you're trying to push it too hard to get it to do what you want, and you're basically leading it into a huge error, and then it gets, it corrects itself and then it tries to cut it, duty cycle right back. It's just all how you manipulate the tables. You can do it either way, but.
Like I said, it's either one or the other. A lot of boost, less timing, or I don't know what the car likes.
Yeah, and that's the thing without a load dyno, you can't really tell. You can only tell so much by doing the, pools on the road and looking at the dyno graph, the virtual dyno graph stuff, so.
Using Evo scan to log everything.
Yeah, yeah, so. Yeah, we'll sort it out so we can get some more out of it. So I've made a whole bunch more full throttle pulls. Right now, I am trying to set up basically the boost target table so that the ECU delivers the boost that I'm requesting. With the Tefa ROM, normally the Mitsubishi ECU will source a load value, which is referencing mass airflow and map sensor calculation, so it gives a value of a load. That's how it normally is. Now with the Tefa ROM, it actually looks at, or you can request it in the ROM to look directly at PSI instead of looking at load, so you have a direct boost lookup. So this table right now, I'm requesting 26 PSI, and I'm setting up my boost wastegate base table, which is where the ECU will start from to start controlling boost. It can add and subtract based on the error from that target. So right now, I'm pretty close. I'm requesting 26, I'm seeing roughly 26, so it's pretty good. I'm bumping ignition timing up a little bit as well. I picked up 30-40 wheel with increasing ignition timing. I'm not actually seeing any knock at all in the data logs. So I added another degree or two to the ignition timing table to see if I can squeeze some more power out of it, see if I can get the onset of knock to occur, and then I know my limit and I can back down from that. But right now we're sitting at 436 and 370 torque. I might be able to squeeze a little bit more out of it. It's pretty solid numbers. This turbo spools really fast. It's great pump gas, street car turbo, great power band. So I'm going to flash it with these changes and then see if we can pick any more power up. So while I've been tuning, I've been kind of messing with the idle here and there, and I've been having an issue for whatever reason. This car likes to start. The idle hangs low on the initial crank and start, and then it slowly comes back up to the target. It's not a big deal, but it's really annoying. It doesn't start like stock. You know, I've been playing with a multitude of the idle tables to try to get that starting kick better. I did find the table that corresponded to it. Now the car does start, revs up and drops down in RPM like it should, like it would be stock. You know, I'm kind of nitpicky about stuff, but I want a car to start idle and act as stock as possible. I mean, this does have 1000cc injectors with a GSC S2 cam, which they are not a huge cam, but they're large. They're much larger than stock. So there is going to be some compromise, but I always try to put as much time as I can into it and make it stock-like as best as I can. So that I think is dialed in. I'm going to probably make another pull or two. We're going to keep the boost at 26, and you know, power is going to probably stay around 440, 450. But you know, make a few more pulls, just make sure everything's consistent, and then we should be done.
Typically startups are cool, but I think when it was tuned at the other place, it did that as well. But after I had issues with that, since the road tune is what I meant, since the remote tune has been fine, but prior to that,
Yeah.
I think it was like a coolant, it was like initial pulse width versus like coolant temp table. It only happened at a very specific coolant temp though. Like if I drove somewhere and sat for an hour and the coolant temp was like around 80 to 100 degrees,
Yeah.
maybe just over 100, it would do that. It was like a rich idle, and then it would clear up and it would be fine.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, this is like it was hanging low.
Yeah.
It wasn't actually a fuel thing. It was actually the idle control motor trying to.
Like the stepper.
Yeah, I had to command more out of it.
Okay.
So once I did that, it's good. Like it starts, you know, like stock now. So.
Oh yeah.
It's much better.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's close.
Oh yeah.
It's close. We're.
You can hear it sounds a little different every pull, or like when you would add timing.
Yeah.
It's so loud. It's
Yeah,
so
it is loud.
Oh my god.
So I just got wrapped up tuning this Evo 8. It put down 440 wheel, about 385 torque at 26 psi. Pretty solid results, great power band for a street car, quick spooling turbo, should be really fun to drive. Some of the cool features with the Tefra ROM that I use is convert it from the mass airflow sensor to the volumetric efficiency, so it's using the MAP sensor. It has a knock light, so if the engine knocks more than the preset amount, so a typical Evo, if you see 0 to like 2 counts a knock, that's somewhat normal. Anything higher than that, it can be a concern, and it can start using the low ignition map. There's a high and low ignition octane maps. It can actually start waiting on the low ignition map. So you want to know when that happens. So I've programmed a knock light that'll flash the check engine light to let you know how much knock it's getting. If it's a slow flash, it means that there's less knock. A quicker flash means that there's a lot more knock. That's another cool feature. There's a launch control with anti-lag that can be set up. Boost cut, a bunch of some basic features, some advanced features. There's also some map switching that I didn't enable in this that you can actually run. If you did a pump gas and a race gas tune, you can initiate the alternate map based on throttle position when you key on the car. That'll switch to the alternate map. So there's some cool features with the Tefra ROM. that you can't do on a standard open source tune unless you're running it. But thanks for tuning in. See you guys in the next video. Like, subscribe, and see you later.